How's it going, everybody, and welcome to How Good Is It Really? My name is Jeremiah.
I'm Luke.
And today we're going to be talking about episode 6 of Obi-Wan. Okay, so, general thoughts. What's your overall thoughts of the final episode?
Okay, shaky start, kind of a struggling middle, and it has a good landing. That's my just very brief overview of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of agree with that. It stuck the landing maybe better than I was expecting it.
Yeah, it really...
Given kind of where we were at with the writing so far.
Really shaky writing throughout all 6 portions of this, where I remember when we started our review where first episodes 1 and 2, we were thinking, okay, maybe it's going to develop a little bit more. Maybe some of these things we're seeing as an issue are going to work themselves out.
Right.
Some of them just didn't. It just remained a consistent lapse in communication between the writing and the directing. Mm-hmm. That's just you can't get away from that. We've seen all 6 now, but that's just how I felt about it. You?
And in this episode, there was definitely some disconnect, and the writing was not the best.
Yeah. How did you feel about it as a whole, like episode and then like the season as a 6 episode segment?
Well, we'll get to the overall series review at the end.
Okay, so then maybe just this episode then.
But yeah, just this episode still wasn't the strongest. I think episode 5 was maybe had a little stronger writing.
I definitely agree.
I'm trying to think of any standout parts in this episode. Writing wise, though, it wasn't like standout. I would give it more of like a, I don't know, there's just big, massive, glaring flaws in it that I just didn't buy. I'd give it like a 6 if I was rating it for writing.
I'd agree with that. It just felt like it had the rough draft of what could have been a great story, and they just forgot to flesh it out, or they just didn't care enough to flesh it out.
There's a lot of really cool stuff in it that happens, but the actual like story beats that tie everything together was a little lacking for sure.
They're not there.
But that being said, the acting throughout I thought was good by most everybody.
Yeah, I think that everybody did exactly what they were told to do.
Especially Ewan and Hayden.
Yes, Hayden Christensen, absolutely, for being either behind a mask the entire time or being a voiceover.
Yeah,
did an amazing job for what he was given. And I think that at this point, I cannot believe that whoever made the final choice to change the script from what it was to what we got, I believe it was Kathleen Kennedy. It's just another example of her pitiful failure as a producer, because I remember I think it was a year ago, they were going to go with a much darker, much more adult version of the Obi-Wan story that was less kind of...
Sounds more interesting.
It does. It definitely does.
It still could have been bad.
No, absolutely. And it probably would have been bad in its own way, but at least we would have gotten a much more believable experience for a galaxy that has been torn apart by a decade-long civil war, and then right on the heels of that is now being oppressed by literally a fascist regime that is hell-bent on dominating every aspect from corner to corner.
Right.
That would have been better to see that. And we didn't get that. We got a Disney approach to it.
It might have been better.
We got a Disney approach.
We'll never know.
We got the Disney version of lightsabers. We got the Disney version of little kids. We got the Disney version of plot holes. And we also got the large, big budget production. So there were some really cool shots. And
the effects in this episode, I think, were... I don't know. I think they were better than last week.
They were in some ways better, but there were some issues that I had with a few things.
They were good.
Again, just inconsistencies.
Where would you rate the effects at?
Effects, I'd give it like...
It's at least a 7.
I'd give it a 7, especially in... And this isn't giving away anything because we knew that there was going to be a final battle between Vader and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
The effects in that particular sequence were really good. I liked the lightsaber choreography and everything about that.
To be fair, that was the majority of like a lot of the effects that were on display.
Correct.
Was during that encounter between Obi-Wan and Vader.
But then there were some really rough points, though. And we'll get into a little bit more of it in the spoilers.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Without giving too much context, there were some really bad effect shots.
I did like the cinematography throughout the fight, though.
That was good too, but then
it was shot really well.
Gets really crappy at the end, really crappy.
How far towards the end are you talking?
We're talking like the last 5 minutes of the episode.
Okay.
10. Not
Last
5.
10 minutes?
Last like 10 minutes where the majority of the segment that takes place with Riva, I won't give too many more spoilers than that.
Okay.
That
I guess I was talking mainly
that was rough.
the stuff with Riva, some of the shot composition and just like the action design, the choreography of everything was a little lacking, unfortunately. I guess the cinematography and editing kind of takes a hit there. But with going back to the Vader Obi-Wan encounter, it was much better there.
That was where the majority of the production value was in this episode. That they clearly put that forefront at the cost of other things.
I guess for each of those, I'd probably still go like a 7 for editing and cinematography.
I'd say, okay,
maybe a 6 for editing.
Yeah, I was going to say 6 for editing, at least a 7 for cinematography.
Yeah.
There's a really, really cringy moment in the very end of the episode. And I'll give more context to that later, but just know up front that there was a really bad segment that I can't, I watched it a couple times, and each time I watched it, I was like, nope, this is really bad. This is just really, really bad.
Okay, well, we'll get there for sure. Going back to the acting, though, because most of this episode is Vader, Obi-Wan, Leia, and Roken.
Yep.
And we get a little bit of some other characters towards the end because we're wrapping up the series.
Yep.
The season. But all of your mains carry it pretty well for the most part. Leia's writing has gotten worse over time.
I really hoped it was going to get better. I really did. It didn't.
Which is why the writing only got like a 6, because they're some of the dialogue and the way some of the characters are written really isn't all that great. But
this was a
6 or 7 is kind of where everything's sitting. The acting, I would give 7 just for.
It reminded me of
Ewan and Hayden did a good enough job.
Yeah, this kind of the Leia lines really reminded me of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, or like a sitcom where the kids are written unrealistically to be funny for an audience that is largely
adults. And throughout
adults.
this episode, a lot of what Leia's lines were, a lot of her dialogue, ended up feeling like she was saying the lines and she wasn't the character.
Very much so. They were
how a lot in this episode
if she
felt,
would have
unfortunately.
been 15, it would have been so much more believable for a young girl who is right on the edge of being an adult and having gone through some lived experience that would give her the character development that she needs to say the things that she says. They would have landed with so much more impactfulness than they did.
That would have played. Yeah, you're right.
That would have played so much better.
If she was just 3 to 5 years older, everything would have played a lot better.
And really, they just tried to sell us on a version of Leia that is like a savant at 10 years old and is able to comprehend emotionally dynamic situations that a child physically is not capable of dealing with. It did not work.
Were there any glaring kind of mistakes as far as the weapons and technology, the ships or anything? How was the set deck? Was all that pretty cohesive and consistent in the universe?
With one real issue, the spaceships, like usual, are Disney. I don't feel like whoever was in charge of writing this segment, which again is probably just the writing team in general, potentially Pablo Hidalgo was consulted with, but I sincerely doubt it. They did the same kind of thing that we saw in The Last Jedi, where space physics usually don't apply. Now, I get that this is Star Wars and space physics have never applied, but there are universal rules.
At least you should try.
Yeah, there are universal rules within Star Wars that you can't violate in order to have a consistency of believability. And one of the things that they really just screwed the pooch on was that it's a transport vessel. Okay, this is unshielded typically because it is for cargo or for passengers. They're usually, with very few exceptions, usually military applications, don't carry shields. It is a misnomer that all vessels in Star Wars are shielded. That's not true. The Gallifrey freighters from Empire Strikes Back, for example, needed to have a planet-side ion cannon bombardment of the orbiting blockade to be able to get past said blockade because they were unshielded. They are not war vessels. Now, we may have missed where they did or did not imply that, and I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but still.
Right.
This is an Imperial class Star Destroyer. Okay, this is basically the real world equivalent of a battleship in a like a battle fleet, essentially. Like there's really isn't anything we can compare it to, but within universe, these are the largest war vessels in existence, aside from the Executor class ship, which is the Executor is what it's called,
right? Yeah.
Which I believe is named aptly for its class as well. I'm not sure if there's another classification for it. I can't remember. If there's any other Star Wars buffs in the comments or just lurking somewhere on the video, comment below and remind me. But I'm fairly certain that the Executor is it's some advanced class, but it's the only one of its kind. Okay. That being said, that transport vessel has the beefiest shields of any ship I've ever seen. The Millennium Falcon, for example, had military-grade deflector shields on it, and it could barely take 2 to 3 hits from a turbo laser impacting the rear shields. And no one inside the ship during those sequences reacts appropriately to being bared down on by an Imperial-class Star Destroyer and being shot at. The ship doesn't rock or violently shake like it's going to come apart. You just kind of see them splashing off the shields like they're at 20%. And Darth Vader gives a line that is so ridiculous and unbelievable where he says, "Increase firepower."
Yeah.
And I fully expected to see Major Asshole from Spaceballs jump up from one of the consoles and just like shout out that like they're at full power, they can't like do it any better. Like it felt like a Spaceballs moment, and I can't take credit for this comparison. The Angry Joe Show pointed this out to me, but they are so right, because in another instance, just again purely lore wise, as the smaller shuttle leaves the other ship to try to split their focus and force them to make a choice between the path versus a single lone Jedi.
Right.
And Vader takes the bait and chases after Obi-Wan, which this isn't spoilers, it's just you literally learn this in like the first 3 minutes of the episode. The ship moves in a way that made me feel like the CGI got really lazy right here, because it's only on screen for about maybe 10 to 15 seconds. But the movements that it makes, and at the very end, it literally looks like the ship warps as it moves across the field of vision in like one of those like iconic Star Wars moments where it kind of like fills the whole view of the screen as it shoots off in one direction.
Right.
It's cool, but not if you do it where the CGI warps the ship and makes it look like it kind of curved around like a cartoon. It didn't. It just looked bad.
I missed that.
Other than that, that's about the only thing I can say that was like broke kind of Star Wars rules as far as like gadgets and technology work. That's the only one. I didn't really notice anything else other than everybody in that ship seemed like they had no idea how Star Wars is supposed to work. They're like, yeah, the power relay's out. We can fix it, but it's going to take time.
Right.
It's all good, though. We're only being shot at by like 50 turbo laser batteries. That's like a super pimped out shield generator. It's going to last forever. Don't even worry about it. That's basically how it came across.
While they're talking about how... Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But that's kind of... That was the only thing I noticed, just to answer your question.
Okay.
Anyway,
which feels like more of a... I guess a writing gaffe more than like the,
I agree.
I guess design aspect of it.
The only thing I would say the design aspect was the ship like moving in like very unbelievable ways.
Sure. So kind of, I don't know, it's probably like a 7 for the set deck then.
Yeah.
Like everything was pretty consistent, but like standard Star Wars, nothing amazing.
Yeah. With the exception of the fight with Vader, which was really good. I mean,
and the music in this episode I think hit a lot harder.
Yes, it did. They did a good. They did a really good job with that too.
That is one thing that has consistently gotten better. Is the music like was almost non-existent after watching the film. Like it was there, but once you got done watching like the first 2, maybe 3 episodes, just like, man, like what is going? But by the time you got to 4, the music started getting better.
Yeah,
and 5 was better. Like the music has consistently gotten better. I will say that, and I really enjoyed the music in this episode. I think all the themes come in right when they're supposed to. It outlines the emotion that's supposed to be happening on screen just wonderfully. So I think this is probably the best the music has been in this show. I would go so far as to like give it like an 8.
Yeah, it was good.
The music,
it was good.
It was actually really.
The music hit
good.
really hard, especially in the fight with Obi-Wan and Vader. It was really good. They did a really good job on that. Again, I feel like the majority of the talent of the entire crew working on this episode literally went into that sequence of shots.
And the same with the music. Well, I guess not exactly the same with the music, but the audio mixing for the episode was much better here. There were no like obviously 80-yard gaffes or anything that was just severely out of place.
No,
again, Star Wars always just kind of feels like Star Wars for the most part.
Right.
So we're there wasn't anything that like really they messed up on. It was just kind of okay.
Yep.
Or at least good. Like 7's at least good. I think 7's like a fair number for the audio mixing where. It was good. There wasn't anything
it doesn't
bad,
deserve
but
to be
it wasn't
like crapped on for having like some sort of major design flaw as far as sound design goes.
No.
It was really good.
Yeah,
it was really good.
I agree. But what about again, episode as a whole? My overall enjoyment. I don't know. I don't.
It was like a roller
I don't know if
coaster
I
for
enjoyed
me.
this one more or. I think I may enjoy this episode less than the last one.
I did too, and I'll say for me it was because it really like coming off episode 5, I expected episode 6 to be on that same level of competence, and it just dove immediately back down to like the level of like episode 3, and then it slowly started to climb back up the trestle. It got to a plateau with the fight, and then it just kind of went downhill from there, and then kind of leveled out.
There certainly are things to enjoy in this episode, for sure. I don't know if the same can be said for every episode.
Yeah, no.
But I don't like it as much as I enjoyed the previous one.
I liked
mainly
the fight
for the
scene.
writing issues.
I really enjoyed
this one had over the last one. But yeah, the fighting scenes,
really good.
the fight scene that we get in this one was
and the Obi-Wan scenes that we get that are
really
like
good.
Exclusively dedicated to the character development of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan.
Right.
I just want to take a moment to say this. Like, this show has felt like the Reva Leia show with guest star Obi-Wan.
At times.
Where the majority of certain narrative plot points were Obi-Wan may have seemed like the central focus, but really his actions only served as a catalyst to either give a motivation for either Leia to do a thing or for Reva to do a thing. And so, yes, the show is the quote-unquote Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but the scenes that worked the best for me in this final episode were the shots where Ewan McGregor was the exclusive focus of what was going on. Because we get to see the majority of
definitely the stronger parts of the show.
What we came to see in the first place. The show was sold as the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, not the Reva show or the Adventures of Leia or whatever. They didn't sell it that way. They sold it as the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And largely, I would say close to 60% of the show has been Obi-Wan, and 40% has been setups for future shows at the expense of what would have been a fantastic narrative about a time in Star Wars history that's rarely explored. And it was just done because reasons. And it didn't work. It did not work. For me, it did not anyway.
Yeah. So out of 10, how much did you enjoy it then?
The full show, I'd give it a 6.
This episode?
This episode, yes, a 6.
Okay.
Final show, little different score, but
yeah, we'll kind of wrap everything up.
This episode was a 6, though. I can't remember what I gave the last show, though. I think I might have given it a 7.
Yeah, I think a 6 probably pretty fair for the directing as well.
Yeah. And this may seem like just that we love crapping on Obi-Wan, but really what you guys don't see is us like talking about it behind the scenes. And we usually come at Star Wars from completely different perspectives because you would be classified as what I would consider like a normie, just somebody who doesn't like, is not invested in
I am the
lore.
casual fan.
Yes, and I am a much more invested Star Wars fanatic, if you will.
Yes.
And so when we look at it, we try to like figure out where we're going to come at the episode before we film, so that we don't like go, oh, well, I didn't know you hated it, or I didn't know you like really liked it. So
we
have,
talk
like,
a little bit beforehand, not about everything, but general.
But what you
consensus.
see on camera is essentially the same kind of conversation that happens behind behind screen too. This is just a raw take on it. Like I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
That's fine. Let's go ahead and get into spoilers then. Our rating for the 6th episode of Obi-Wan, the season 1 finale, is 67. So down a little bit from last week, which is fair. Because I don't think it was as strong of an episode, but still had some enjoyable parts. But let's go ahead and get into spoilers, though, and actually talk about the things that we want to talk about. What's the first thing you want to jump into?
Well, let's just talk about kind of the major beat points, because one thing that we're going to try to do differently in the following episodes is we're going to try to be a little bit more organic about the way we approach reviews, and we're not going to give a full exposition. So we're not going to break down scene by scene everything that happens, because
we'd rather just talk about the things that really stood out, that we enjoyed or didn't enjoy.
And if you want to just if you want a more long form discussion, there are places where you can find just plot points beat for beat, but in reality there's not that much for us to talk about, so we're just going to talk about the major beat points. That being said, I want to talk about the fight first.
Okay, let's do it.
The fight definitely takes precedence as being the major focus of this episode. It literally starts within like the first 6 minutes, and lasts for, I would say, probably a good 15 minutes. So what, a third of the this episode?
It doesn't start quite that fast.
It felt like it did. It was really quick.
It was quick, but I don't think it was
maybe not
fast,
that quick.
But
It happens fairly fast. But that being said, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen again are fantastic choreography duelists. I mean, this is one of the better lightsaber fights that I've seen.
It was really cool.
It was really good.
Really cool to watch.
Really good. And the force power shown, also very, very cool.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why they just took Obi-Wan and dialed him up to a 10 when, like, we literally saw him struggling to move a 2-inch long object.
Yeah.
Literally
yesterday.
like what would be in universe. Yeah, like yesterday. And now all of a sudden he's levitating like 20 tons of rock. It's kind of...
It's cool, but it's definitely inconsistent.
And it was unbelievable. But the fight was cool. They did the same lines that they did from Revenge of the Sith, where Obi-Wan says, "I will do what I must," and then Anakin replies with, "Instead of 'you will try,' then you will be destroyed." Instead of just simply giving like an out, it was just, one of us is going to walk away from this dead.
Yeah.
And so one of us will walk away and the other one will be dead. That's what I meant to say. Thoughts?
Isn't that what you said?
No, I said it a little bit different.
Okay. My thought after watching this fight and this episode in general, it reminded me of Falcon and Winter Soldier. The Disney Plus series.
Having not seen it, I can't comment. So go ahead.
Because I've been going through the entire MCU with a friend of mine, like watching all the stuff again. And so we have just finished up rewatching Falcon and Winter Soldier, and from a technical standpoint, that series does a lot of, let's just do this because it looks cool.
Yeah.
And never mind any kind of continuity, even shot-to-shot continuity.
Yeah.
Like, they throw it out the window. All of season 1 of Obi-Wan has kind of done that.
Very much so.
Where it's
Absolutely,
like, hey, this would be
100%.
really cool. Does it make sense? Is there
No.
a good enough motivation for it to happen? No, but it'll look cool. That was my thought after having watched this episode, and then, subsequently having watched the entire series at this point. It's like, yeah, it reminded me a lot of that, where it's like, at a certain point, I kind of get it, where it's like, cool stuff is cool, but you know what would make it cooler? If it made sense. And the fight was cool. The biggest thing that I did not like about this episode,
Go for it.
was, what is time? What is travel?
Oh,
What
yeah.
is-
I know
what is
exactly
being
you're-
places?
100%. I agree with that.
Because
There-
the episode opens up with Reva, like, already on Tatooine.
Boom, just blip. She's there.
Like, okay, the transport left, then Reva and Vader fought. Reva got stabbed, is incapacitated to some degree. They leave, and then presumably she
Commandeers a vessel
commandeers
somehow.
a vessel that is not there, because there were 2 transports. One of them got taken, one of them got crunched by Vader, and the shuttles, the transports that she came down with have left. She has no means to actually get off the planet. If you assume, like, okay, she found a vessel somewhere,
and even if
fair enough, but then...
Well, even, I think she might have had a private shuttle, but even if she did, they would have
gone.
taken it with them.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just going to leave it
did,
there.
It's gone. Like, they didn't leave her a ship to go somewhere with. Like, that would just be stupid. But then we cut from Riva there to immediately the Star Destroyer chasing the transport vessel.
With the strongest shields in the known universe.
So at least they did that, where it's like, as soon as the shuttle took off, everybody was like, they know there's a Star Destroyer, like, in orbit, right? Like, they can't get away. At least they, like, tied that in.
Yeah.
They didn't have them just get away off screen.
But seriously, like, this planet had to have been in, like literally, like, you could have looked out the window and seen Tatooine.
But
That's
how
fast the travel needed to have been in order for that to work.
How quickly Vader leaves, gets back to there, and is chasing
the ship through space.
And by the time he does that, she is, like, already over on Tatooine.
And we know Tatooine is a backwater world.
And we know the events are happening simultaneously because Obi-Wan has to finish the fight with Vader and then jump into light speed to get to Tatooine in time to save Luke from Riva at the end of the day. Like, all of this happens over the course of 6 hours?
Like a day, literally.
Inside of 12 hours.
So we know that, canonically speaking, we know this from watching Episode 1, Tatooine is so far removed from the known galaxy that when the Naboo ship, I can't remember the name of it, but when it was damaged in the blockade run, they limped through space on sublight engines to get to Tatooine, which took a while. It wasn't like just a quick jaunt, across to the neighboring system. It is known as a backwater planet, and it is also known as being, like, directly under control of the Hutts, which are a criminal gangster organization. You don't go there without needing to deal in nefarious deals. So
fair.
Why? Like he said, it's just time is just irrelevant in this episode. Like, they just clearly don't care that the inconsistency of being able to just dip out and show up on a planet that is however far away, it would have at least taken a day or two to get there. Period. There's no way you can justify that. But keep going.
That was it. It was just like the inability to write a cohesive narrative without breaking time.
Well, and you brought it up, so I'll bring it up.
Try and do things that are cool.
And you brought it up, so I'll kind of capitalize on that. And at the very end of the fight with Vader, because obviously there's no tension, we know neither one of them die because both have to survive for episode 4.
Which is fine. I think they know there can't be any tension, so they at least make it the fight interesting and cool.
It is
which
a cool
is all
fight.
you can do.
It is correct. It's all you can do. And there are no canon breaking vibes in that sequence. I will say they cheapen the reuniting of Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope because it literally happens 8 years later. We're not talking 20 years. It's literally 8 years later. And the way that they play it in Episode 4, the way that George Lucas wrote it, was supposed to be a faithful reunion of master and apprentice since the last time they met.
Last time we met, I was but the learner, now I am the master.
Right, and Vader makes several statements about Obi-Wan being a legend and not to take him for granted. And then also makes a statement in the presence of Tarkin that he senses something, doesn't know what it is, but he hasn't felt it since, lets it trail off, takes off. So there is definitely an implication of an excessive amount of time that's taken place. I do feel like in the sequence in that fight, they did cheapen that a little bit. They really did.
Maybe a little bit.
And I get why they did. I get that it was cool to watch. I don't resent them for that, but I will say it did cheapen the line in A New Hope like 10%. Not egregiously,
Sidebar.
A little bit.
I really like Tarkin just because he is one of two people that can give Vader orders.
It's true. And get away with it.
And he's the only Grand Moff.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
I believe there's a couple others in universe, but, well, that's not true. In Disney canon, I think there might be like 2. Wilhelm Tarkin and Admiral Yularen, I believe he's a Moff as well, a Grand Moff, but that's like a territorial governor that's like over several planets, essentially, like the way that I understand it being broken up. And Disney's really screwed with all of how all of that worked. But I think you're right. There's like
unimportant though, like just because Grand
note.
Moff Tarkin is like one of 2 characters that can give Vader orders.
Peter Cushing is a fantastic actor. Like he was easily the best choice for that role. Just the haughty English demeanor of a seasoned war veteran, and having served in World War II, Peter Cushing was just. Man, he was so good in that role in the original movie. In loafers, I might add. Like, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but like there's a number of sequences in A New Hope where Tarkin is shot from the waist up because he
just wouldn't wear the boots.
Because the boots were so uncomfortable for him that he physically could not wear them. So like if you look at certain like behind the scenes shots, he's literally walking around in his slippers while shooting these sequences. So that's just great. Little Star Wars trivia there. But
all right, let's jump to the Reva stuff.
Cool. Okay.
Reva and Luke.
Oh boy.
So aside from like the whole like time not making sense, okay, we got past that. We get to Reva. She's on Tatooine. She goes to
totally shrugged off being like mortally stabbed. By the way, completely shrugged it off.
Yeah.
We saw that thing go in one side
she should be
and
dead.
Out the other. There is no way you can sell that to me.
And to go back to episode 5, everybody that I know of had the exact same thought as soon as Vader got 2 lightsabers. Oh, just like Dooku. Everybody had that exact same thought. It was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Like, he's just going to... And then he throws her the 1, like they have the duel, then he gets 2 again. It's like, okay, now he's going to
do the thing.
Like, yeah. He didn't.
No. He really didn't.
And everybody thought it.
Yeah.
Sidebar.
Such a huge wasted opportunity.
Reva, looking for Owen because she knows Owen's name from the previous episode.
I will say, just as I don't know if maybe this was just me, there is no reason, none, that she should have known that Owen was connected to the child that was not named in the video that she only heard snippets of, that only gave a brief location. There's like 5 cities on Tatooine. There's Anchorhead,
there is justification for it.
Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, and then I believe there's maybe 2 others that are like outposts. But that's a huge friggin' planet, and there's 3 major cities.
So on the recording that she intercepts in episode 5, they do say Tatooine. And
they do.
Owen.
Oh, did he say Owen?
They do say Owen.
Okay, I missed
in
that.
the recording.
I missed that because I was like, "What the hell?" There is no way she should have known that, but I missed it, so that's my bad.
And she goes back to the right town
because she knew that's where she encountered Owen in that village.
That's where Owen was. Cool. So whether or not she knows it's that Owen, at least she has a lead. That's the only place she knows to go.
Okay.
So it is explained.
That's internally consistent. Aside from the fact that she can just literally like portal jump from one planet to another, that's still unexplained. And the fact that she's just like slightly limping from like a crushed rib, basically. Other than that, that makes sense.
So, she goes to the market, asks, blah, 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 does the thing, figures out where Owen is.
And then for, like, no reason, just, like, puts down a bully. Like, just because. Like, she didn't kill him or do anything. The guy's just, like, being a dick and, like, so shoving his way to the front of the
out of his hand. He's like, okay, I'll leave now.
Yeah. And then that sequence is just kind of over. Like, that's all she does.
Because if somebody uses the Force in front of you, you just walk away.
It's true. Like, but it just felt kind of unnecessary. Like, it was just kind of one of those, like, I'm a sort of good guy now kind of thing. It was like, okay, just...
But then we get
it. She's the bestest ever at everything. Like, just get on with it. And then Owen basically runs off to the homestead.
We get Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru defending their homestead, and they tell Luke that it's Tusken Raiders. Tusken Raiders are raiding houses on the outskirts again, so he needs to go hide. Like, fair justification. Like,
absolutely, 100%.
Because that's probably something they've had to deal with before, so it would make sense.
The conversation between Beru and Owen was really unbelievable, though. Like, I really dislike the way that Owen has been portrayed in this as being kind of like just an idiot, as being kind of either bitter and incapable at the same time. He's grown up his entire life on Tatooine. His father and mother-in-law, or stepmother, were both murdered by Tusken Raiders. Shmi Skywalker. Owen is the son of Klieg Lars, who was the man with one leg that we saw in the repulsor chair in Attack of the Clones. He went on to die later in another raid against Tusken Raiders. I believe it was in response to the massacre that Anakin killed all of the Tuskens. There was a reprisal, and I believe Klieg died. Anyway, Shmi died as well. So Owen he's a homesteader, and he's battle-hardened against Tusken Raiders. They're not just like random thieves that just show up and take stuff. They're not Jawas. They're violent, and they are known
He should be more prepared. Like, even though this isn't Tuskens and he knows it's not, like,
he
knows
should still be like
Jedi.
way more prepared. He kind of just like wanders into the courtyard like, what do we do?
Yeah, he should be more prepared for the way that he is
And then
portrayed.
Beru just like, she like opens up a secret compartment because they need to hide weapons in the middle of nowhere for some reason.
Yeah, why would you be hiding the weapons? That doesn't make sense.
No.
Especially in a spot where you legitimately probably do get raided by Tuskens.
And if you,
And,
I can already hear you right now. I can already hear, it's because of the Empire. This is like weapons ban. Bull. Hard bull. There is no Imperial presence on Tatooine. None. We don't see Imperial stormtroopers roaming through town. There's no Imperial sigils. Nothing.
That's the whole reason why
they went there in the first place.
And put Luke with Owen and Beru is because of the lack of Imperial presence. Because it's so far removed from the actual, let's say, meaningful systems throughout the galaxy that have resources.
They thought it would look cooler if they had like secret weapons, but really it was just
no need
dumb.
for it.
It was dumb. And then Beru is just like, chucks him a gun and is like, we're going to defend our home. Do your job. It was like, what? It was so jarring. And he just was like being like bossed around by her for what felt like literally no justifiable reason at all, period. Like, it didn't fit the character. And it didn't fit the moment. It was just another forced feminism movement because.
Yeah.
That's the only like thing that I got from that. I was like, okay, that's dumb. But the reason they give Luke and they put him in the room and they tell him, you know what to do. Mm-hmm. We're just going to do what we've always done when this happens. I liked that. That was cool. That was just like a little in-universe moment about what it's like to live on the, right on the edge of what is,
which again,
known
if he
as the
knows
Tusken
what to
wastelands.
do, meaning this has happened before, which means there's no reason to hide your weapons because they would need to be something that you would need to have at the
for
ready.
real. These are,
so it makes no sense for Owen to be surprised.
Tons of
by
issues
this
there,
fact.
absolutely tons of issues there. But
and then they say, let's just say she'll wait for the sun to go down before she attacks. Probably, yeah, that makes sense. So we should get in position now. And then they proceed to not get into position now because they then wait till after dark to
and
get
then
into
just like
position.
rush to their starting points.
It was a stupid line that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, it was written to try to give the illusion that they were like really prepared for Tuskens to like breach their home and get into this little like central courtyard that I've always thought was really cool. By the way, the Lars homestead has always been one of my favorite Star Wars locations.
Yeah.
It's so cool. But the way they play that, you're right. It was just a forced line to make it seem like they were that Beru, not Owen, was way more prepared for this than he was. Which, again,
like they should both be.
They should both be prepared, and they should have just been like, grab the the rifles that they have and just be like, okay, it's time to do it. We know what to do. Like that's just how it works. But instead, they had to like put this forced feminism line in there to like make Owen look kind of dumb and stupid in that moment, and he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
like,
it
just
played really
work.
badly.
It didn't work. But anyway,
we get Reva's
they get the drop on her
on the little raid on their homestead, and Owen's a terrible shot.
Everybody in this show is a terrible shot, with the exception of Obi-Wan.
They simultaneously open fire on her and miss.
Completely. From like 3 feet away. With rifles, with scopes, I might add. With scopes.
I give him 15, maybe 20 feet.
I could have shot with one eye closed with a Nerf gun with better accuracy at that distance.
So she should have been dead there, but she wasn't. Okay, fine, fair enough. I don't know. There's a point in this fight where Reva forgets she has a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And is like screaming at Beru, and Beru's like, no, is it Owen? Owen's trying to like hit her with a thing.
Yeah, giant
she
pipe.
He hits her with the thing, and then she like blocks the thing with her arm, and like tries to dodge it. And like, you have a lightsaber. Like he does like 3 things, and then she cuts the little pole in half with the lightsaber. It's like they just forget.
Did you forget
what
you had the
they're
Force?
doing sometimes?
Did you forget you have a lightsaber that literally spins?
Because she cuts the little pole in half, and then like force pushes him off the thing, but only after he like punches her in her wound and like hits her
broken rib. He punches her in her lightly bruised broken rib.
And again, she makes the line like, you know, what somebody asks her like, why are you doing this? It's like justice. It's like it doesn't play all that well because what justice are you getting from killing Luke?
Which
that
also,
doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I still don't get how she put 2 and 2 together and is like, this is Vader's child.
I still don't think she knows it's Vader's child.
So she's just randomly killing some kid in the desert for no reason then.
Because he's important to Obi-Wan.
But her whole motivation was to go after Vader. She was only ever going after Obi-Wan because he was a means to an end for her to kill Vader.
I know.
It literally makes no sense.
Not a ton of sense unless you look at it from her
the only people
now trying to get back at Obi-Wan for like double crossing her.
Like if you play mental gymnastics, the only reason that the audience, if you think it makes sense, is because you know what she does not, which is that Luke is his son. She does not, though. If you examine her motivations, they don't make sense. Anyway,
yeah, it's not the clearest for sure.
Owen gets yeeted off this little bridge thing and like injures his knee because somehow we needed to like justify the limp that Owen has in episode 4, I guess. Okay, cool.
Okay.
And so she gets into the room and Beru...
She doesn't kill them.
No.
This
because they can't die.
Right. It's
they
like,
get barbecued in episode 4.
Yeah, they can't die because they're supposed to survive. So Reva cannot kill them in universe.
This whole forced interaction is just dumb.
She 100% would. If she's
absolutely, she would have killed him on the spot. They would have died in the courtyard. She would have just yeeted them into the center and just chopped them up, or deflected the blaster bolts back into them.
Yeah. So the encounter just feels
forced for drama, and it's stupid. It shouldn't be there. Anyway.
Yeah, because everything you've told us about this hot-headed character so far, if she's actually out for revenge, like, she's not like, oh, I have to kill this kid, and only this kid, and nobody else must die.
Yeah.
No, I fully believe that she doesn't have a problem killing people necessarily.
This is only followed up by more stupidity.
It ends up having maybe a little bit of justification when she actually catches Luke.
Sure. That I have issue with,
because
though.
she can't... She's you know, she like pulls him off the ledge, like force pulls him or something, like falls down, knocks himself out, you know, whatever. And then, you know, she's getting ready to kill him, and then she has, you know, eventually like kind of sees herself in that position
and realizes she's about to do what Anakin did to her and all of the other younglings.
Right. So she doesn't want to become that, which, okay, fair enough. Having that moment of clarity is not a bad thing to have happen.
This is also the same person, though, that like straight up chopped a woman's hand off for like sassing her in public. So, like, the flippin' character over, like, 3 days, she is so mentally unstable.
It's a little quick.
It's a lot quick. Where she goes from being, like, basically a murderous inquisitor who is just ready to off people at the drop of a hat to, like, having a moral qualm about killing a kid because of something that happened to her in her traumatic past. It plays that way for us, because we're the audience. We're supposed to, like, go, oh, she's going to have this moment of redemption, which we saw coming from literally, like, a galaxy away, because this has all been a setup for the Reva show. But anyway, it was kind of just forced, and it didn't really work. But I have issues, actually, with what preceded that. I don't know if you caught this or not. I don't know if a lot of people did.
Go for it.
So in episode 4... we see the Sandcrawler approach the Lars homestead from pretty far ways off. And we see the Lars homestead from different shots.
I know where you're going.
Okay. From different shots in sequences throughout the beginning of episode 4, just to kind of like give an idea of like how far away it is and how removed it is.
It's a very isolated place.
Incredibly isolated, with like miles between it and the nearest thing.
Very flat land.
Incredibly flat land. And sand, I might add, and that will become more important in a second here. But basically, in Attack of the Clones, if you're like maybe not sure about that, go rewatch the introductions to Attack of the Clones. You pretty much see the Lars homestead from every discernible direction. There are no mountains near the Lars homestead. There is nowhere that Luke could have run on foot in sand at 4 foot fast enough to get away from her. There's no way. He climbs out the roof and then manages to get 100 miles away in less than 10 seconds. To running in these cliffs, which the amount of camera shake and like screen tearing that happens in that moment, And I swear to God, they
reused
reused him running a couple times. Like, I swear it was reused footage a few times. That is one of the worst shot scenes I've ever seen in Star Wars. Period. I've never seen a worse composed shot in anything else I've watched. It was so dark and murky and screen tearing, it looked like garbage. That alone, though, along with the fact that people in this apparent version of Star Wars can just portal jump. Have you ever tried running in sand? It is damn near impossible. You can get like 20, 30 feet and you're exhausted. Literally exhausted. After and especially if you have like an adrenaline burst and you're trying to run, go try it. You're not going to get far. And if you think that you will, you're mistaken. Unless you were an athlete or you've been training in it for a while, you're not getting that far.
I mean, to be fair, they live there.
Sure, they get there. They live there, but they don't practice doing
you're right.
quarter miles in the desert. There's no Iron Man on Tatooine. Anyway, he somehow manages to magically travel to these mountains, which Reva also magically manages to travel to with a mortal wound, I might add, which is basically just a broken rib because she got stabbed on 20%, which is like the equivalent of getting tickled with a taser, I guess. And then she pulls him off the ledge and then goes through this whole crisis of identity, which was the most unbelievable thing. Aside from the time-jumping portal crap, which clearly time means nothing in this episode. And then it cuts back to Obi-Wan fighting with Vader. We get some more cool shots of them fighting. And then we get a really good set of dialogue. Probably one of the best lines of dialogue in the entire show.
Yeah, the exchange between Obi-Wan and Anakin when Obi-Wan cuts his helmet and we see half.
That was a good move, too. I liked that. He, jumps off a rock and spears his lightsaber forward as Vader also spears his lightsaber forward, but Obi-Wan levels his body out so that Vader's lightsaber basically just passes directly underneath him, and he just flicks the tip of his lightsaber through and completely just shears the helmet in half. It was a really good shot. That looked really cool.
Yeah.
And then we get a really good sequence of dialogue where Vader or Hayden Christensen gives a voice acting. He's actually there in the costume.
Yeah, he's in the suit.
Speaking, and they do this thing where the voice amplifier is breaking, so you hear Christian Haydenson and
James Earl
Jones
back and forth, and sometimes you hear both at the same
time, and it was so cool. Yeah. And he gives the line that makes a lot of sense because it gives justification for Obi-Wan telling Luke that Vader killed Anakin.
Anakin says, "I am not your failure. You did not kill Anakin Skywalker.
I killed him."
Yeah.
And then at that point, Obi-Wan basically, through tears, calls him Darth and walks away. Yep. He's effectively won the fight. I mean, he's crippled. His breathing apparatus is destroyed. His helmet has been decimated, and he's literally been bludgeoned by 100 2-ton rocks.
Yeah.
But he also buried Obi-Wan in also 20 tons of rock, which I guess in Star Wars, people just kind of everybody is kind of dumb in this show because they're yeah, I killed him. And then they just walk away and he's really not dead. You might want to double tap.
Obi-Wan getting buried, that was his come on Spider-Man moment from Homecoming.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan has a cool moment where he throws the rock, which Vader's apparently deaf as a post because from 50 yards away he doesn't hear it.
He should have heard that.
And he's pauses and he's he didn't die. For real, dude? That was your cue? The little force tingly spider sense? You didn't hear the 2 tons of rock get blasted into into space?
Right.
Anyway, that and then the fight sequence, it was really cool, the line of dialogue, and then Obi-Wan travels through a portal because he gets to Tatooine within minutes of the whole sequence with Reva happening. She comes walking out of the desert as Beru and Owen are kind of combing the outskirts of their homestead looking for him, which again, I might point out, shouting into the distance, surrounded by hundreds of miles of open sand. You'd see him. It's a moonlit night. The sand would have reflected the moonlight. It's like this show was written by people who don't even go outside or have never even been to the beach before. It was so stupid. But anyway, Reva carries Luke's body back. We think he's dead. We don't think he's dead because we know he's not dead.
Yeah,
but Owen and Beru think he's dead. And everyone kind of has this stunned silence moment where they don't do anything. And then Reva lays his body down, Luke moves, they rush and they grab him.
And that was really awkward with the dialogue.
Really, really awkward. And then Reva has this really unbelievable moment where she like says, "Am I just like them?" And Obi-Wan goes, "No, no, you're not." "Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You've literally done innumerable, countless, terrible things, watched and stood by as families, children, men, women were butchered in the name of the Empire to get to your singing." "Yes, you are. You are just as bad as them. You don't get a free pass."
Well, she says, "Am I just like him?"
Yeah, you are. Sorry. Yes, you are. You're an inquisitor. You've done horrible, rotten, terrible things to get to where you are. You don't get a morality check.
No, she
pass.
can change and she can be better.
Sure, but you don't get a free pass for all the stuff you did, lady. It's not a thing. And Obi-Wan's like, "You're good. It's all good. There's nothing that bad. It's all fine." And he helps her up, and we pretty much just get like she drops her lightsaber, which that was the one believable moment of that whole interaction.
That was the most unbelievable thing to me. Why in the world would you drop a lightsaber?
Well, I guess
why would you give up your
weapon, your identity?
Yeah. You, like, whether or not you're
a changed person, like, why would you give that up?
Yeah,
I guess it like gave like weight to the moment of her like statement, which I was like, okay, cool.
Well, maybe that was this all away. No, she's not. Yeah. She's still going to need a lightsaber. She's still going to use the Force.
In a show about space wizards and flying starships, the dialogue and characters are the most unbelievable thing about this show, for real.
Yeah, I didn't buy her like giving up the lightsaber.
That whole thing was
maybe as symbolism, it makes sense, but like it still doesn't.
Off
make
camera,
sense.
she totally picked that crap back up and like
because you wouldn't give that up. You would just, if you're going to be a changed person, you'd
in
use it
Disney
for good.
in Disney lore, all you got to do is just switch your alliance, and the little crystal that's inside that's Force sensitive and semi-sentient is just going to like purify itself. And now instead of a red lightsaber, you have a blue one or a yellow one.
Force works.
Yeah, that's not how lightsaber crystals work. God, they're so stupid. Anyway, other than that, we get a really good sequence of dialogue between Leia and Ben when he goes back to Alderaan and sees Bail Organa, and in front of these soldiers, I might add. Again, these people are so oblivious to what subterfuge is and how to like keep people secret. They're doing a terrible job. Like, he's in the middle of the open air in a city full of people on probably some sort of like registered vessel from Alderaan. And he's just like strolling out on the pad like, "I'm Obi-Wan."
It was weird.
Anyway,
I didn't bump into it in the moment, but now that you say it, it's like, yeah, for somebody that's like actively wanted by the Empire, like I get that Bail has a lot of power on Coruscant.
And Alderaan's a neutral planet. On Alderaan. Still, dude. Really? Spies? Everywhere.
Yeah, that seemed very irresponsible.
Incredibly stupid. Anyway, the dialogue with Leia where he tells her the things that she got from Anakin and from Padme, he doesn't give her their names.
No.
He doesn't. He just says who they were, sort of. He doesn't say he was a Jedi.
Yeah, he just says that he knew them, and basically these are the traits that you got from your mother, and these are the traits that you got from your father.
Because we know that Leia has, of the twins, between her and Luke, she's the only one with any memories of her mother. Because she was the only one to have, like, kind of like she had her eyes open when she was born, and she kind of has like these very vague general ideas about who her mother was, but she didn't know who they were, which they didn't break canon in that way, which was okay, fine. Yeah. You get one pass there. But that was cool. And then Luke, Obi-Wan meets Luke for the first time, and he says the line. He says
all he needs to?
Yes, he says the "hello there" line, which was really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Which that is the second time that Ewan McGregor's done that. The first being with General Grievous, and the second time, and he nailed it, by the way. He sounded just like Alec Guinness. It was really good. And it was the only thing he needed to say in that moment. Yep. Because Luke doesn't have any context for really who Obi-Wan is besides he's the crazy old man.
Yeah, just some old hermit that lives out past the Dune Sea. Like, that's all
and his uncle typically has always kind of like poo-pooed on Ben.
Which tracks. It's like he... And it doesn't like episode 4 because it's like he knows of him. He knows who old Ben is. Like, he's been around. He's just this old dude that lives.
And he doesn't know that he's a Jedi. He doesn't know anything about him. He just has like these general ideas that like he's just kind of is there. He might show up once in a while, but that's basically it. And that's where the episode cuts, and that's what we get.
Well, we end with Obi-Wan and
oh shoot, I forgot. Probably yes. So Liam Neeson is in this episode. And he looks old as crap.
He
looks really old.
It's not his fault.
No, but they definitely did not try to de-age him at all. They just slapped the beard and the hair on.
Maybe he's been aging as a Force ghost. You don't know.
Yeah, maybe you just age continuously as Force Ghost. But anyway, he looks pretty old. But he appears to Obi-Wan and says, "You just weren't ready
To see
yet." And they go together off into the wilderness because Obi-Wan empties his little like cave of sadness and gives up his job butchering sand whales for a living and goes what we presume to be his homestead on the Judlin Wastes, where we see in episode 4 where he takes Luke after almost dying to the Sand People.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Overall enjoyment, I would give this show...
Yeah, what do you think about the show as a whole?
I'd give it a 6. I really would. It's Star Wars at the end of the day, and I will watch it because it's Star Wars, but...
Yeah, I struggled with this because this show has maybe some of the coolest moments in Star Wars.
Again, to me, it felt like a draft of a much better episode.
Like, I really think it does. It has some of the coolest moments in Star Wars. Like, the Reva Vader fight was so cool.
Oh, it was.
Like, just seeing Vader powerful is really cool. Seeing Obi-Wan and Vader fight is so cool. Like, those two encounters were the best parts of the show.
Right.
And my favorite parts. But, like, I've been struggling with, does it justify the show's existence?
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either.
And
like, for as good as those bits are, when you go to rewatch this show, that's what you're going to watch.
It's
and
not
you will
enough.
Skip everything else.
It's really not enough. We're talking like less than 5 minutes of on-screen time.
The writing is for the entire series, for all 6 episodes, the writing is inconsistent and serviceable at best. The dialogue has flashes of greatness.
Yeah. Just like spurts, like a firework kind of kind of going off and then just totally not meeting your expectations.
I think it's like a 6 out of 10. I don't know.
I was being generous. If I'm being harsh, it's a 5.
6 out of 10 would be being generous. As a whole for the series, I'm tempted to go 5 just because I never need to rewatch this.
Never. I would agree with that 100%.
But there are moments that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'd watch them on YouTube, but I'd never intentionally go back to watch an episode without needing to for the purposes of this review.
Right.
This show did not need to be made, first of all.
Like, I could, to put it in perspective, like, I have rewatched Mandalorian.
Yeah, and lots of people have, normies and fans alike.
Because every episode you watch, it, like, is well crafted to the extent that you watch it and you are taken on this journey and this ride again, and
it's just a mini episode of greatness. It's just
flaws
so good.
Might be in there aren't large enough or grievous enough to take you out of it. And whenever an Obi-Wan is the exact opposite, where the majority of things are just kind of lackluster and serve to take you out of the narrative.
I can't agree more on that. I think that Deborah Chow was the worst choice for this show.
So we can be optimistic and give a 6 out of 10 for the whole.
Yeah,
but I'm tempted to go 5 just because I could take it or leave it. 5 is kind of my take it or leave it, where it's just like it's not actively
the salty
good
Star
or
Wars
bad
fan in me.
Overall,
the salty Star Wars fan in me felt like this was a 4. Obi-Wan was disrespected. Reva and Leia were basically the center focus of most of this, and they were written poorly. The lore was not respected. The technology was not respected. The simple mechanics of editing and time management were not respected.
Yeah. And
the overall just feel of the show just suffered as a consequence. Like, as a salty Star Wars fan, it's a 4. As just a guy who can shut his brain off and watch people swing
5. The show as a whole, I could take it or leave it.
Glowing swords, it's like a 5, and I'm only going to give it an extra point because I love Star Wars.
I've decided on a 5. I could take it or leave it.
Cool. I'm going to meet you right there. I'm going to call it a 5 as well. I feel bad because Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan will always be one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, with like one other exception. Tamira Morrison as Jango Fett and Boba Fett is amazing.
No.
I love his performance.
He's not even in my top 5. He doesn't do it.
And that's just personally for me because I love Mandalorians. Like, I played the games. I have like a full set Mandalorian army. They're just some of the coolest untapped potential of Star Wars. I love the Mandalorians, and that's why I love the Mandalorian TV show. But like, for me, of just like fan favorite characters, Han Solo, Obi-Wan, Luke Skywalker, original trilogy, and Lando. I really liked Lando's character. I hated what they did in the Han Solo movie. It was so stupid. And then they just made it even dumber by making robots like an oppressed class with like some sort of like vendetta against people. Like that kind of happened, but not really. It's just
right.
Star Wars lately has just felt like people who write Star Wars don't like Star Wars. It's written by people who are more interested in making money, first of all, and having some sort of message in everything they do.
The message part I can agree with. And the make money part, like, I get it, but like
you suck at your job.
You don't know how to do it.
No, you suck. You literally suck at your job. Like, if you're trying to sell this to fans and normies, you suck.
I mean, we did
go
watch
back
it.
to film school. Yeah, but only because I had to. Only because I had to.
We did watch it.
But I mean,
but it's
this is not something I would recommend
Yeah.
for a hardcore Star Wars fan to watch. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it and you will be entertained to some extent. But if you're a hardcore fan, just turn your brain off. Just try to ignore the things that are wrong with it. And if you are just a normie and you think I'm wrong about everything, I wish I was you. I genuinely wish that I could just consume media and be woefully and blissfully ignorant of all of the things that they are just sacrificing in the name of fast, cheap media. It's like the difference between a $100 bottle of wine and the $5 crap you get on bargain at Walmart. Both will get you drunk, but one of them is going to be a significantly more pleasant experience than the other. Not that I'm endorsing alcohol, just the only analogy I can think of at the time.
Yeah, weird place to go, but okay.
Seriously.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. 5.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Okay, take it or leave it. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show, or the Riva Leia show, guest starring Obi-Wan Kenobi, is a 5. It sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. That's
If
it
you-
for...
if you
that's it.
have any... if you disagree with us or agree with us, I mean, you can just let us know in the comments below. We'd
Yep.
love to have you be part of the conversation for sure. If you have thoughts other than ours,
Thank
Or
you
if
for
agree with
watching.
us.
Thank you for watching. If you could just comment again, like Jeremiah said, just leave us a like and a subscribe if you feel that we've earned it. If you didn't like the episode, thanks for sticking around anyway. For those of you who did like it, share it with your friends and family, people who you feel like may enjoy our content. That's the best way we're going to grow, and we'll continue to be able to make more content for you guys for years to come, hopefully. And Jeremiah, for Spotify.
Yeah, and if you are listening to us over on Spotify, thank you very much. If you could follow us and leave us a rating over there, that helps out a ton as well.
That's going to wrap up this week's episode and the series of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Later.